Back to our top story now and the fallout from the new Japan Free Trade Agreement. I'm joined in the studio by Fund Manager Roger Montgomery. Roger, welcome.
Thank you, Ticky.
So, I gather that you don't agree with Andrew Robb and Tony Abbott that these FTAs are a huge win for us.
No, and I don't agree with a lot of what Andrew Robb says. He told me at breakfast about a year and a half ago that our current account deficit was structural, and that just means we're not going to do anything about it. And what this free trade agreement does, like the free trade agreements we've got with New Zealand, the United States, Singapore, Malaysia and Thailand, is absolutely nothing of the scale that they're describing. In fact, the Productivity Commission came out and reviewed the Australia-US Free Trade Agreement, which was put in place in 2004. Now, it's been 10 years. It's still 8 years away before we see complete tariff removal on beef. And in that time, beef sales to the United States have gone nowhere arguably down. What this does, though, it entrenches low consumer prices.
Well, let's keep on beef for a minute. By the way, I didn't realise that Andrew Robb was National Farmers Federation head, but also the Cattle Council head in the 1980s. So this beef move was quite important for him, and he stressed yesterday on 7:30 that it was the fall in the tariff early up in both chilled and frozen beef, big falls in the first couple of years that will give us something of a first mover advantage.
Ticky, can I tell you, the big problem is we are exporting commodities. You know, there's no brand associated with those commodities. We take a global price on those things. We add no value to our exports. So this does nothing.
Well, at least we actually have an abattoir and we pack it and we chill it. I mean, that is some value add.
That's something. It's some of the way. But we're not doing it on a scale that's going to employ the thousands and thousands of people
you don't think this might encourage it? Because
well, it hasn't done it yet. You know,
there's this argument, though, that about whether food will actually be the big thing for Asia or not. And most people I speak to in business are not interested in food exports because they don't believe it'll ever happen.
Well, the problem is you've got Woolies importing Italian tomatoes that are actually grown in China for much cheaper than they can buy them from local growers.
So SPC won't be happy because I gather that the tariff on canned products such as tomatoes, peaches, pears, fruit are all gone under this agreement.
What we need is not free trade agreements. What we actually need, all that does is make us more dependent on cheap labour and lower prices. What we actually need to do is a comprehensive tax review to incentivise industries to start up to replace the ones that we've killed by successive governments ignoring our competitive advantages. The idea of exporting beef and iron ore is ridiculous when we're importing iPhones and televisions and high-end products. We will forever entrench our current account deficit, which means we require a capital account surplus, and the result of that means we have to sell our businesses, we have to sell our land in order to fund the fact that we're spending more than we're earning.
Now I've worked you up, I'm going to get you onto property.
Yes.
You say property prices won't crash for baby boomers. Why?
I think, look, superannuation was invented by baby boomers for baby boomers. You've got 67% of baby boomers owning their own home. They will have to at some point sell their properties to fund their lifestyle and their healthcare. The generation underneath them cannot afford to buy. In comes the government to rescue the baby boomers again. How do they do that? Well, they might open the floodgates to allow foreign investors to buy older homes, not new homes and off-the-plan homes, or they might extend, for example, negative gearing to, for example, first home buyers or second home buyers for the first 5 years or 10 years. But what they will need to do...
The property industry, but not the car industry.
The solution to the government's fiscal problem as the baby boomers age, the solution will be to maintain high property prices.
That's very interesting. And so negative gearing, you don't think, will be shrunk in the other direction to assist in this?
Well, you could shrink negative gearing to assist, but in the long run, you're going to have to provide some tools or some devices to support a generation of people underneath the baby boomers who are all crying poor, who are all saying they can't afford to buy a property, to allow them to fund the exit of the baby boomers so that the government doesn't face a generational fiscal cliff.
Roger Montgomery, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
It's pretty lively.